Have you ever walked into a room, offered a gentle smile, stood there among others, and no one looked up? Have you ever been speaking mid-sentence, only to be interrupted as if your words didn't matter? Or have there been moments when you sat quietly in your own home, once filled with the warmth of children's laughter and busy footsteps, and suddenly felt invisible? The feeling of being looked through doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly after 60, quietly taking over small, everyday moments. You're not hated, you're not insulted, but you're also no longer noticed, no longer heard, no longer seen as someone with presence, with value, with something to say. And the heartbreaking truth is, many women over 65 begin to feel invisible, even in their own families. You haven't done anything wrong, but certain things, how you've lived, how you've always loved others more than yourself, how society treats age and gender, come together in a way that slowly pushes you out of the center of your own life. In today's video, we'll gently explore 5 psychological and social reasons why women over 65 often feel this way, and more importantly, how you can begin to change it. Not by demanding to be seen, but by slowly turning inward, reclaiming your sense of self, and letting your own light shine again, from the inside out. If any part of this feels familiar to you, I invite you to stay. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person naming what you've been feeling to help you start becoming visible again. If you're enjoying this content, comment 1 below to let me know you're here. If not, comment 0 and I'll work harder to bring you even better content. Now, let's start it. 1. You have been putting others before yourself for too long. For many years, you may have lived with a familiar rhythm, always thinking of others before thinking of yourself. When you were young, you were the obedient daughter. Then the devoted wife, the selfless mother, the ever-ready grandmother. Through those years, you cared, supported, stepped back so others could step forward. You skipped meals so your children could eat, stayed up late so your family could rest, and quietly set aside your own dreams to keep the household together. None of that was wrong. It was love, it was sacrifice, it was the mark of a generous heart. But when those things repeat over decades, something subtle begins to happen. You start fading in your own life. When you're used to standing behind everyone else, you begin to believe your worth is tied only to being useful. When you're cooking for the family, they call your name. When you're babysitting, tending to your husband, you're needed. But one day, the kids grow up, they have families of their own, and your name isn't called quite as often. No one is trying to hurt you, they're just continuing on with their lives. And you're left, unsure who you are when you're no longer living for someone else, not yet knowing how to live for yourself. I once heard a 68-year-old woman say, "I thought when I got older, I'd finally get to rest. But when I stopped caring for everyone, I realized I didn't know who I was anymore." That quiet loneliness is something many kind-hearted women silently face. After spending a lifetime loving, giving, and holding everything together, they find themselves lost once the noise settles. The truth is, no one made you invisible. It's the forgetting of yourself over and over again that slowly erased you from your own story. And that's not your fault, but it can be your turning point. Change doesn't mean you stop loving others or become selfish. It simply means you begin taking small steps back toward yourself. Maybe it's a few minutes a day doing something you love for no reason. Maybe it's learning to gently say no when your body is tired. Maybe it's showing up again, not to demand attention, but to feel present, alive, and seen by your own heart. Because once you start truly seeing yourself again, the world will start seeing you too. The feeling of being invisible doesn't come from age. It comes from having stepped back for too long. But no matter how far you've gone, you can always return. All it takes is your permission to show up, not for anyone else, but for you. If you're enjoying this content, comment 2 below to let me know you're here. Let's move to number 2. Society defines women's value by their youth. There's a painful but undeniable truth. In modern society, the younger a woman appears, the more visible she becomes. In advertisements, magazines, and across social media, the image of a woman is celebrated most when she's at her peak, with smooth skin, shiny hair, bright eyes, and a vibrant body. Qualities like wisdom, experience, and depth rarely take center stage if they come wrapped in wrinkles or gray hair. And so as a woman reaches 60, then 65, then 70, she often begins to feel quietly pushed out of the world's spotlight. Not with cruelty, not with noise, but with a silent, cold distance. When you were younger, you might not have noticed. But as you grow older, it becomes easier to feel overlooked rather than truly seen. You are still the same woman, perhaps even wiser, kinder, and richer in life experience. But changes in your appearance shift how others look at you. You begin to notice polite glances rather than engaged eyes. You get interrupted mid-sentence more often. People refer to you in vague, dismissive ways. Someone's mother, that older lady, a senior woman, instead of calling you by name or sincerely asking for your opinion. And gradually, you start to believe that maybe you no longer matter in the way you once did. This feeling of invisibility doesn't only come from the outside, it begins to seep inward. You start dressing more plainly, taking fewer photos, avoiding the mirror, choosing not to go out alone, slowly retreating from the spaces that once made you feel alive. Not because you have nothing to express, but because you're no longer sure that anyone wants to see it. I once heard a 70-year-old woman say, "I don't feel less than, I just feel like I've faded." And that sentence lingers because it's painfully honest, and many women feel the same but don't know how to say it aloud. But here's what matters most. You can't control how others see you, but you can change how you see yourself. If the world chooses to spotlight youth, that doesn't mean your worth has diminished. It simply means the light now needs to come from within. It means you begin nurturing your beauty from the deepest parts of yourself, through your knowing eyes, the hands that have created and cared, the heart that still stirs at the sight of beauty, even if that beauty isn't loud or youthful anymore. You don't need to become the woman you once were, but you can still be radiant in the way only a woman who's lived fully and still glows from the inside out can be. And that light doesn't go out unless you stop tending to it. 3. You blur yourself out in crowded rooms. Invisibility doesn't always come from the indifference of others. Sometimes it begins within you, from the way you walk into a room and quietly choose a seat in the corner, from the soft smile you give when someone says something incorrect, but you don't want to correct them, from the silence you hold during family gatherings because you're afraid of making things awkward, afraid of being a burden. And through moments like these, you gradually shrink yourself. Not loudly, not intentionally, and one day you realize you were there, but somehow no one seemed to see you. Older women often carry with them a quiet, humble way of living. For years, you may have taken on the role of the gracious wife, the thoughtful mother, the gentle grandmother. You were taught that speaking less was wise, yielding was virtuous, and stepping back kept the peace. And so you became used to not finishing your thoughts, not speaking up, not asking to be heard. You believed it was maturity. But over time, that habit becomes a soft fog that settles over you, making even those who love you forget just how much your voice used to matter. I once met a woman named Judith, 71, at a small community gathering outside Denver. She sat quietly during the discussion, offering only a gentle nod when someone addressed her. Afterward, she told me, "I'm not a quiet person, but I've lost the habit of speaking up. Every time we have a family get-together, I sit off to the side. Not because I'm sad or upset, I just think what I have to say probably doesn't matter anymore." Then she shared that just recently, her youngest granddaughter had turned to her and said, "Grandma, tell that story from your childhood again. You left off at the best part." Judith smiled, her eyes a little wet. That's when I realized, maybe they do still want to hear me. I just stopped telling stories for too long. That story stayed with me. It reminded me that sometimes people don't forget you on purpose. They've just grown used to your silence. And if you want to be heard again, sometimes all it takes is one small change. A simple comment, a sincere look, a story you offer, not to be the center of attention, but to be fully present as yourself. Presence doesn't come from volume. It comes from the feeling you give others when you say, "I'm here," with a full heart, a clear mind, and something still worth saying. You don't have to fight for your place. You just have to step out of the quiet fog you've lived in for too long, simply because you were afraid of disturbing the peace. And when you begin to do that, you'll find the ones who truly love you are still there, waiting for you to come back into view. If you're enjoying this content, comment 3 below to let me know you're here. Let's move to number 4. You live so long in a service role that you no longer recognize yourself. Something strange happens to many women as they grow older. They no longer know who they truly are beyond the roles life once asked them to play. For years, you were the devoted mother, the selfless wife, the gentle grandmother. You knew your children's school schedules by heart, your husband's favorite meals, your grandchildren's sleep routines. You made breakfast, tidied beds, and arranged everything so others could be comfortable, and you did all of it with love. But somewhere along the way, you slowly pulled back from your own inner life. At some point, you may pause and ask yourself, if no one needed me to take care of them anymore, what would I do? A simple question, yet for many older women, it brings confusion, even emptiness. Because after so many years of living in service to others, you may have forgotten what you used to enjoy, what you once dreamed of, who you were without the labels of a mom, wife, grandma, or the woman behind the scenes. And when no one needs your service anymore, it can feel like you've lost your reason to be. I once heard Monica, 70, from California, share that after her husband passed and her children moved on with their lives, her days suddenly felt longer than ever. No one needed lunch. No one was waiting for her to come home. She'd walk into the same kitchen she had stood in for 40 years, look at the familiar tools in her hands, and realize she didn't know who she was cooking for anymore. She recalled once standing in a grocery store aisle, holding a box of tea, then putting it back. Not because it wasn't good, but because she wasn't sure if she even liked it. That's when I realized, she said, I didn't know what I truly wanted anymore, because I had spent too long doing only what others needed. That story isn't uncommon. Many older women are not lonely in the physical sense. They have families, conversations, loved ones around them, but they feel a quiet disconnection from themselves. They're not sad, but not joyful either. They don't blame anyone, but they don't feel like themselves anymore. But you can begin to return, not by searching for who you used to be, but by gently rediscovering the parts of yourself you left behind. Maybe you once loved to write, but stopped because there wasn't time. Maybe you adored the color yellow, but wore dark clothes for 2 decades to avoid standing out. Maybe you used to enjoy evening walks alone, but put it aside for responsibilities. Now, with the chapter of caretaking quieter than before, is the time to turn inward and ask, if I didn't have to care for anyone else, what could I do for me? True presence begins when you become your own companion again. Not in a rush, not with pressure, but by listening to even the smallest longings in your heart. You don't need to become someone else. You simply need to gently remember who you are, outside of all the roles the world once gave you. 5. You secretly believe that invisibility is the natural fate of aging. Deep within many women over the age of 65 lies a quiet, familiar sadness, the belief that fading into the background is simply part of growing old. That at a certain age, one shouldn't ask to be noticed, shouldn't stand out too much, shouldn't live too loudly. That, at this age, you should know your place, step back, and let silence be your wisdom. That belief doesn't come from nowhere. It's shaped slowly, by words passed down from older generations, by the way society expects older women to behave, by watching mothers and grandmothers live quietly, gently, without demand. It becomes an unspoken rule that after a certain point, women are supposed to step aside, give up the spotlight, become observers, speak less, expect less. And you begin to believe it. You believe you're no longer the center of anything, so not being listened to seems natural. You believe you've lived most of your life already, so not being celebrated or respected the way you once were feels expected. And you start to shrink, not out of sadness or anger, but because you think that's how aging is supposed to be. I once spoke to a woman named Eleanor, 74, at a small community gathering. She told me she hadn't told a joke in years, hadn't offered an opinion, hadn't bought a colorful outfit in a long time. I'm not sad, she said. I just think at this age, it's better to let the younger ones be the bright ones. I asked, do you still feel like you're part of life? She was quiet for a long time before saying, not really. That answer felt like a collective sigh from an entire generation. But it's also why we need a different kind of reminder, a gentle one. Growing older is not a fading into darkness. It's a shift in light, softer perhaps, but still warm, still bright enough to warm others and yourself. You don't need to step out of the center of your own life just because your hair has grayed or your skin has softened. You're still the storyteller, still the main character in this story called your life. And nothing in this universe says that at a certain age, you must stop shining. The problem isn't that age makes you invisible, it's that you've come to believe you're supposed to be. But if you begin to question that belief, to gently nudge at it, to loosen its grip, you're already planting the seeds of your return. Not loudly, not forcefully, just you, steady, clear, and quietly radiant, stepping out of the shadows, lit by the light that's been inside you all along. If you've ever felt like you're fading away, know that you are not alone. Millions of women have reached 65 with the sense that the world around them is moving on, without calling out their name. But that isn't destiny, and it isn't the end. It's simply a moment when you are being invited to return to yourself. You have spent a lifetime caring for others, keeping everything peaceful, stepping back time and again so that others could move forward. But today, in this stage of your life, you have the right to step into your own spotlight, not for others to see you, but so you can see yourself again. With a kind gaze, with an open heart, and with a fully present spirit. No age is too late to live more clearly. No face is too old to be seen. No story is too late to be heard, so long as you choose to tell it from the very beginning in your true voice. If this video feels like a timely whisper for you, please hit like so that this message can reach more women who feel the same way. And if you'd like to continue hearing gentle yet valuable insights about aging, life, dignity, and inner peace, please subscribe. Because every day, we all deserve a little space where we can be understood, where we can be accompanied, and where we can return to ourselves. And if you know a sister, friend, or mother who is quietly retreating and going unnoticed, please send them this video. Sometimes, just one line or one simple word is enough to help them reappear.